Well, we got a lot today. So, what do you want to do?
I don't know. We don't have an intro. Welcome, everybody, to the Glaziar Gamble with Mychal Glaziar and Joe Rybolt. We are here today to give you a bunch of sports news. We got some baseball news, which we don't normally have, just covering some Hall of Fame news. We got a good amount of basketball news with some all-starter information. And we also got, one quick women's basketball because it's a big record that I wanted to talk about. We got some Timberwolves discussion. Then we're going to jump into the NFL with some more NFL playoff talk, including some of the upsets last week and what we think is going to happen this week. We're also going to talk about Vikings talk, some of the head coach hires, the GM hires. We got some other storylines. We got for NBA, we got Kyrie, James Harden. For NFL, we have Roethlisberger, Sean Payton, a bunch of other things. So let's jump into it with the first section of our discussion, which is baseball. The first thing is ex-Minnesota Twin, David Ortiz, is in the Hall of Fame, entering the Hall of Fame, obviously, as a member of the Boston Red Sox. When he was on the Minnesota Twins, many people don't know this, but the GM/head coach at the time said, David, we don't need you to swing. You're not a power hitter.
Yeah, don't swing for the fences.
Don't be swinging for the fences. Yeah. So
just try to make contact.
Yeah. So they moved him over to the Boston Red Sox, and they told him swing away. Here we are today, Hall of Famer known for hitting home runs. Twins aren't the worst Minnesota sports franchise, but they've made some bad decisions, and getting rid of Johan Santana and David Ortiz, Jose Barrios, they're definitely, when I think Twins, I think getting rid of your best players and keeping the ones that really don't make major impacts.
Sure.
The other big Hall of Fame news for baseball is Barry Bonds did not make it. This is basically his last year of eligibility, so most likely he will not be making the Hall of Fame. Unless
the Hall of Fame changes something or to give him another shot.
Which, very unlikely. So there's most likely Barry Bonds won't make the Hall of Fame, which is, as I said very eloquently on Twitter, bullshit.
Yeah. It's a lot of people are talking. Okay, so he was steroids, right? But there was a phase of, or a time frame of baseball where it was very boring. They were losing viewership. All of a sudden, there was this PED/steroid usage over the course of an era of baseball. And that reinvigorated the excitement around baseball. I saw a lot of people that said Barry Bonds isn't in the Hall of Fame because of steroid use or whatever, but steroids themselves should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame because they saved the sport. So
without steroids, baseball wouldn't be watched. You have those guys that are the faces of doing bad. You got Pete Rose, Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez, Roger Clemens. And you have these guys that they're the face of that era. And then when I think steroids, I think of those guys that it was just extremely obvious, even if it didn't show up in their stats. Right. Like Jason Giambi. For those of you who don't know who Jason Giambi is, when he was a younger player in baseball, he was not a very big guy. He was, kind of taller, but he wasn't very stocky. And then a year later, all of a sudden he just comes out and he's just huge.
Right.
It's okay, well, obviously something helped him out here. He's a perfect example, in my opinion, of somebody that I don't know if it was ever proven he was on them, but what his transformation was not natural. And that wasn't cheeseburgers. Right. So Barry Bonds deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a huge shame just from a sports person. Right. I know enough about baseball and, Barry Bonds to have all the accolades he has and just not get there is despicable.
So I saw a lot of people saying he's not the best hitter of all time, or the best home run hitter. Okay. Which that's fine. You can say that. My comparison when I was thinking about this is if Ray Allen didn't make the Hall of Fame, he's not the best 3-point shooter of all time.
Right.
But he was one of the best.
Right.
And many people could argue he was the best. And he had plenty of stats to back it up.
Sure.
But that'd be him not making the Hall of Fame. for like, obviously he didn't have any off-field stuff, or off-court stuff, but that would be somebody of like, you think of Ray Allen's impact on basketball, especially like shooting the three. That was Barry Bonds with home runs.
Right.
He was just that he might be one of the best hitters of all time, definitely one of the best power hitters. He's got a ton of stats,
right.
And his first half of his career is Hall of Fame numbers.
Yeah, for sure.
Then you have twice that. It just ridiculous.
There's a clip that I saw the other day of him like the bases were loaded and they intentionally walked him. Walked him. They would rather give up a run by walking in a run than to pitch to Barry Bonds.
Score was 8-6, bottom of the ninth. They walked in, so it was 8-7. They ended up striking out the next people. Or it was a ground out and game. So they ended up winning by walking Barry Bonds.
Right. Because
if they hit it, the game would have ended 10-8.
Yeah.
For the Giants.
Sure.
Barry Bonds would have hit it.
Right.
So yeah, that's my stance on that. Barry Bonds deserves it. I don't care what you believe about like steroid, that sort of thing. It takes more. If you believe Barry Bonds doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, not a single member of the Houston Astros that has been playing nuts these past few years should make the Hall of Fame ever. Jose Altuve, nope, should never get in the Hall of Fame. You can't.
Correa.
You can't prove that they were the ones actually using it, but they were part of the scandal. Anybody, that means Tom Brady's been part of 4.
Well, Drew Brees doesn't deserve to make it. Drew Brees doesn't deserve to make it now because of Bounty then. So.
Right, and I guess I get it that that's a different sport, but even sticking with baseball, if you believe that Barry Bonds doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, Jose Altuve, correct, anybody on the Houston Astros can do whatever they want for the rest of their career, they cannot make the Hall of Fame.
Sure.
So just if you're a Houston Texans fan,
excitement of someone like it's like every time you see like I'm sure Golden State fans feel this when Steph Curry shoots, right? Like as soon as the ball leaves his hands, it's like a buildup. It's like and I imagine that's the same thing when Barry Bonds hit the ball. Like as soon as it went crack and like he just watched it and dropped his bat. Like I'm sure that's what fans were just freaking out. I would love to be part of that atmosphere. Like
no bat flips,
right. I think he was just one of the guys that just like said it and like watched it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, if hitting a home run, definitely just sitting.
Hitting it out of like San Francisco, like into the like the lake or pond or
like
whatever.
Landed in Japan.
Yeah, somewhere.
Barry Bonds was great. So anyway, that's our statement on it. Let's jump into basketball though with a more popular sport. Let's do a quick shout out to Ioka Lee. She's in Division I women's basketball, scored 61 points, which is a record in D1 women's history. She also had 12 rebounds. I'm not sure about the rest of her stats, but 61 points.
That's still a good line. 61 and 12. That's still good.
Even if it was 61,
line.
12 and 0, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Shout out to her. Just awesome. Just super cool. Next, into men's basketball, though, we have a couple things. LeBron James is what a lot of people believe is the best basketball player of all time. Majority of people, even nowadays, say Michael Jordan is. I get it. Whatever way you want to argue, that's not what we're here to argue. However, we can say that he probably is the best basketball meme maker of all time.
Yeah, it's up there.
He's got the one of him looking up.
Yeah, he's got him with JR.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
He's got the one with JR. He's got the one of him looking up and being confused. He's got Austin Reeves.
Oh, the one where he's looking at the piece of paper and Westbrook's like,
yeah. He's got so many good memes, and now we got a new one to add with him explaining something to Austin Reeves, and Austin Reeves is looking like a fourth grader trying to be taught astrophysics. Just
yeah, and then he quotes it with the quote that Tony Stark says to Peter Parker. It's like, I don't want you to be me, or I don't want you, or
don't do anything I would do, but don't do anything I wouldn't do.
There's a little gray area, and that's where you operate. Like that.
Yeah. So I thought that was really good, and so if you haven't seen it, maybe I'll post it up here. And oh my God, it's just so good. Speaking of LeBron, he was the number one vote getter, I believe, in the West for All-Stars, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I believe that. He's also the first player to make the All-Star game 18 seasons in a row.
He is. But the question is, do we care about All-Star games and All-Star appearance games anymore?
Not anymore. I thought that when the East one came out, I was like, all right, that's very fair.
The East is Trae Young, DeMar DeRozan, Kevin Durant, Giannis, and Embiid. That's
very
super
like
good.
that seems right.
Yeah, there's others you could argue, like maybe Harden over DeMar, but the way he's playing this season, you probably have to put DeMar there.
Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum.
But the West starters: Steph Curry, LeBron James. Oh, I'm blanking on the big guy, the big men.
Jokic.
Anyway, and also Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins is one of the front court members, passing up guys like Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Davis.
It's gonna be Ja was the other one.
Andrew Wiggins being a starter. I don't care if you want to argue he's like the 13th All-Star. I really don't. He's not an NBA All-Starter. It's purely from the NBA fan votes.
Yeah, it's Golden State. They got a huge fan base. I mean, it's the same reason Zaza Pachulia made it. You know, so like
it's just like if we were to put the NFL Pro Bowl purely on Twitter, Bills. Like every Bills player would be the starter. It would be the Bills versus
Cole Beasley.
The NFC.
Yeah.
And so this whole Andrew Wiggins being a starter is Peyton Hillis on Madden all over again. Like it's somebody that while they did good things and have done good things, especially this season, there's no way. So yes, All-Star votes can still matter, but I don't know when you.
I don't know. You got to take it out of the hands of the fan. The fan vote can't mean that much.
Nope. If anything,
that's what they want to like. It's not the entire NBA fan base. That's who they want to see. It's Golden State manipulated. It's the fans of Golden State Warriors manipulating a system that doesn't make sense.
I agree 100%. Go ahead and do it like on a website like NBA.com All-Star voting and leave it to something like that, because a lot of people that are on Twitter aren't going to go through the effort of just retweeting hashtags.
Right. I did the first one for the 3 Timberwolves starters, and that's all I've done.
Right.
That's
I think
my
I've
contribution.
Retweeted more than once for Ant. I think I retweeted once for D'Lo, Cat, and Ant, and then multiple time more for Ant. Anyway, so just wanted to mention that. I think that's kind of ridiculous.
Over say I saw this. It was like over Booker, over Donovan Mitchell, over
Zach LaVine. Wait, that's East.
That's East. But yeah, I don't know.
Just ridiculous. Don't need to badger Wiggins more. I'm very happy for him. I wanted him to be successful when he left Minnesota, so I'm happy he's successful. I just don't think he's NBA all-starter successful. So we did just mention Anthony Edwards. He was just interviewed because he's one of those he recently just achieved a record, another one, and it was the third player in NBA history.
That was second
player in NBA to score over 40 points and have 0 assists.
Yeah, I think he had 9 boards, 3 blocks, something like that. So I mean, he filled the stat sheet up in other ways, but he didn't want to pass it.
Distributing. Yeah. And so he was recently asked if there's
what's your favorite nickname or something.
Well, he was asked what's your favorite nickname. He was also asked who's the hardest person to guard, and he said me, because I'm unguardable, I'm unstoppable. And then for nicknames, he says Black Jesus.
Black Jesus. And he's sitting next to D'Lo, and D'Lo's like reaching for a water or something, and you just see D'Lo like smirk, and then he's like, I gotta lean back for this one. So I don't know. It's good camaraderie. He was unstoppable. Like I think
Ant is amazing.
In that Portland game, he was unstoppable. It was like 3 after 3 after 3 after a drive. No one could stop him.
He's the type of energy the Wolves have need. Like with Cat and D'Lo, they were just kind of chill, meh. You know, that's why Jimmy got frustrated. Wiggins fit in with that. It was just no real like outspoken, energetic guys. Now you got Pat Bev and Ant. Now the whole team is just different. I absolutely love it. And Anthony Edwards is a gem. He's a national treasure.
Yeah, Chris Finch did an interview. They asked about him, and it's like, do you have a problem with his confidence? They asked him about his like confidence, and he's like, no, he literally believes that he can do everything that he's saying he can do. So
I was watching a sports network, and they said there's not a single player in the NBA right now that believes that LeBron James is not the best player, that they would be able to stop LeBron James one-on-one, even in year 19. And my first thought was, I can think of one player.
Yeah.
Like if you ask Anthony Edwards, could you stop LeBron James one-on-one? He'd say
yeah.
Or he'd say, even if I can't stop him, I'll outscore him. Like he'll say, tell me what you got to do and I'll do it.
It's his rookie season, right? And he's playing Portland, I think. Portland and Carmelo. And he bangs a 3 right in Carmelo's face, and he does the freaking 3 thing right in his face. I was like, this is awesome.
It's
fun to watch.
Love it. We got Black Jesus on our team. and I couldn't be more happy about it. It's him and Pat Bev have made the Wolves so much more watchable. Even if they weren't in a playoff contention right now, this team is awesome. However, continuing with Ant, reasons why he's awesome. He's currently 4th in the NBA in 3-pointers made. He is behind Fred VanVleet and Fernay Simons.
Yeah, this is for since the beginning of the year. And so this was a stat during that Portland game. So they were comparing. They're like, all right, and Fernay Simons, you can't leave him open. He's gonna get his 4.7 threes that he's gonna make, and then Ant had 3.6. But I think Ant had 5 that game, so it went up even more. But still,
it's funny to me because we talked about Fernay Simons in a previous video. Feel free to check that out. One of the things coming out of high school when Fernay came to the NBA was that he couldn't shoot. Well, it just shows you like some of these raw guys, if you get the right coach, the right developmental team, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then since January 3rd, the Wolves have the best offensive rating and 15th defensive rating. The offensive rating is so good that their net rating is 4th.
We know that. I mean, while the starters are on the floor, they're very efficient at an offensive level. I think it's crazy to see that because usually we're like 26th out of 30.
Well, and
so
if you have the number one offense, you need a top half defense if you want to win a championship. So if they were able to keep this offense going through the whole season, that's a playoff contending, deep playoff run team.
And a really, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. The crazy stat about that Portland game, and when I was texting you about this, is we started pulling away from Portland. It was close at the end, regardless. But we started pulling away from Portland when we switched Jared Vanderbilt on and Fernay Simons, which I think is super weird and just shows his versatility and what he can do. So
Vando's our best defender, 100. It's Vando and Pat Bev, but Pat Bev's a little on the older side. Vando's your lockdown guy, so
yeah, it's so
Vando's
weird,
like if we were in the playoff matchup, like Vando's going to take the top defender now, unless guys like Ant can show that they can stop him. Otherwise, they have to put it.
Right, Ant's really good at like where steals and stuff come from. He's very good at like figuring out where the ball's going to go next.
That's why I'd be scared to go up against the Suns, because Vando's going to have to guard Ayton. Somebody else is going to have to guard Booker.
Right.
Cat's probably not going to be able to guard Ayton. It's just
that'd be one of those things where it's like you're either going to bring Jaden McDaniels out there and not have that much offense from him, or you're going to have Ant's going to have to step up,
or Cat's going to have to step up.
I don't think Booker could guard Ant.
I don't think Booker would try.
Yeah,
I think Booker would.
Jay Crowder, right? Yeah, Jay Crowder would.
Yeah, I think Booker's goal would be to just score more points than him. Anyway, the last two things that we have for NBA talk is Kyrie Irving is still good at basketball.
Yeah, this is just in reference. I put this note on there when we played the Nets. We were the number 1 offensive rating. The Nets were second. They didn't have KD, but Kyrie still had 30 points in a short amount of time. So Kyrie can still play basketball. Nets fans, it's just
Harden wants to test free agency, and Harden says that he doesn't know if he's necessarily happy with the team. He made a comment about how he doesn't like Kyrie's unwillingness to get vaccinated and play. He either wanted Kyrie to be out the whole season or to come back. He doesn't like the whole half and half thing.
Sure.
And he's never been a free agent before, so he wants to test free agency and see what it's like, which I think that's super smart. Even if he does go back to the Nets, I think it's smart to at least for him to realize like, hey,
I mean, there's going to be a market for him. So
100%. There's not a single team would get worse with getting James Harden on their team.
Right.
The only thing is he needs to go to a team, in my opinion. Like right now, he fits so well on the Nets because in the playoffs, KD and Kyrie can carry him.
Yep.
And then in the regular season, he can still put up his stats. He's going to have to go to a team where, like, I know a lot of people are saying right now this is when the Sixers should trade Simmons and get Harden. And it was
he's still going to test free agency. So like,
he's still going to test free agency. And on the Sixers, James Harden would have to be that second option. Yeah. You can't let Tobias Harris and Embiid take over because that's not going to win. So, just those couple things going on with the Nets with James Harden, Kyrie Irving. I think James Harden's smart to test free agency. I understand why he's upset with the current situation. We haven't really gotten to see the Nets play as a fully healthy team at all. And Kyrie Irving has never not been good at basketball.
Well, yeah, if they were healthy in the playoffs last year, they would have been in the finals. So,
they were an inch away with KD's foot.
Yeah, a lot of things have been an inch away. Let me tell you.
Let's go football. It is. First thing I want to talk about is Chiefs. Let's talk about last week's playoffs. Our episodes tend to come out on Saturday, so the other games will be going on right now. So we won't go into these too in depth. But Chiefs versus Bills happened. Super exciting game. back and forth. Patrick Mahomes, 13 seconds is too much time. They started calling him Mr. 13 Seconds. I would like to apologize to him. That nickname is already taken by me. My wife gave it to me many years ago, so that's my nickname. He gets to stay away from it. But the big thing about it was they needed to change overtime rules. I disagree. I think if they do change it, it's a small tweak. But overtime rules changed in 2010, and they changed to what they are now because it used to be you could just kick a field goal and win the game. And then they allowed it, if you could stop them scoring a touchdown, you get a chance.
Right.
The one tweak I heard was that you allow the away team to pick the spot. Or no, the home team to pick the spot, and the away team decides who gets the ball. They say the 10-yard line, the 15-yard line, the 20-yard line. That's where you start. And then the away team decides they want to try to stop you, or you get to try to stop us. If the Chiefs think the Bills are going to take the ball no matter what, they say, all right, you got to start on the 5-yard line. But then will the Bills be like, oh, if you want to start on the 5, you guys got it.
Yeah.
So I like that. I think that's fair. Gives the power to both, and then lets you decide. Well, they chose to defend. So
right. Well, I think the rules are fine as it is. You just got to play defense.
Right.
That's how. And if you're gassed, which the Bills seemed gassed at the end, then you're gassed. That's
right. I agree 100%.
I also don't think when things come down to the last play, that's the reason you lose. There's a million other reasons throughout the game where you probably could have performed better. And
yeah, you're in overtime for a reason.
Yeah.
If you couldn't stop them in regulation, then that's your problem that you can't stop them in overtime. We can speculate that if the Bills got the ball, the Bills would have won. We can say that.
Yeah.
But you don't know. You don't know if there's a random tipped pass by a defensive lineman that gets the Chiefs in there. You don't know. You don't know if the Chiefs just give up on defense like the Bills did in overtime.
Yeah. Well, even 13 seconds left. They make Tyreek Hill go right up the middle. They had Travis Kelce go right up the middle, and then they got a field goal.
Yeah.
So
there was so much more to that. Yes, I understand that it's frustrating, but the Bills had an opportunity. The Chiefs tried to get the overtime rules changed in 2018 and 2019. The Bills were on the voting side of no in both of those scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, if
now all of a sudden that they're on the wrong side, they want it changed.
Yeah, I mean, we watched 9 games of the Vikings this season come down to us not playing defense and the other team going right down the field. So it's like we know the pain, but it is what it is, and
we're used to that.
Our season's over. Your season's over.
Maybe that's why we feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like we had to suck it up.
I'm used to sucking it up. All right, let's jump into the next game: Packers versus Niners. So just to recap, I was 6-0 week 1 for picks of the playoffs. Week 2 of the playoffs, I was 1-3. This is one of those games I picked the Packers, even though I'm not a fan of the Packers. I picked the Packers to beat the Niners. I was wrong. The Niners won without scoring a single offensive touchdown. I don't think they scored a defensive touchdown either. So
team's touchdown and then 2 field goals. Yeah.
A lot of people were saying that this is 100% on special teams. Nobody else's fault. This isn't Aaron Rodgers' fault, any sort of thing like that. Aaron Rodgers' stat line was very reminiscent of what people claim that Kirk Cousins to be. And if I just for example, if any other quarterback had this stat line in a playoff game, people would tear him to shreds. And I haven't heard anybody say Aaron Rodgers had a bad game.
No. 20 for 29, something like that, right?
With just over 50% of his passes were at or behind the line of scrimmage. And out of 21 targets, 17 of them were to Devontae Adams. I think that's so stupid that people were blaming special teams. Special teams was the biggest reason. That was their biggest weakness all season. That was the biggest reason why they lost. But no, that was on the entire offense. There was after the Mercedes Lewis fumble, Aaron Rodgers just stopped giving him the ball. Aaron Rodgers looked terrified back there.
Right.
I think David Bakhtiari not being there was a bigger hit than the special teams. There were so many more reasons for it. So congratulations to the Niners. I think it's awesome. I really enjoy watching the Niners play football, especially with the style of football that they play. They have multiple players that I think it's easy to root for. And I think I've said this before. I've seen almost every team play at the Vikings. And so I've got to interact with most fan bases. The 49ers fans have been some of my favorite fans to interact with. That was the game. That was the year the Niners were terrible right before the Super Bowl season, and the Vikings demolished them. They were super positive still the whole time, talking to us back and forth. The one dude turned around after the Skol chant. And he's like, "Not gonna lie, that was sick."
Yeah,
like he's just so cool, such good fans. So they're actually really easy to root for.
Yeah, I talked to some random guy at work. Actually, he had a Niners hat on, so I was like, "Niners got a big win on." I said Sunday, and then I was like, "Wait, no, Saturday." And he's like, "Yeah, they did." He's like, "You." And I was like, Vikings fan, so I'm like I'm happy the Packers. Yeah, and he's like, all right. He's like, yeah. He's like, what do you think they're gonna do? Blah blah blah. And I was like, I basically gave my what I thought. He's like, well, I either want your offensive or defensive coordinator. So
I want Mike McDaniel as the head coach. I've heard that D'Amico Ryans is one of the top choices, but we'll get to this later with the Vikings talk. But I've heard there is a front runner, a very strong front runner for the Vikings head coaching position after their current GM hire. Congratulations, Niners. I think the Packers had a lot wrong with them. I don't really care what Aaron Rodgers does, whether he retires, follows in Favre's footsteps, comes to the Vikings, goes to the Broncos, goes to the Steelers. I really could care less. I think that one team he would fit well on is the Niners. I don't think they'd have a way to get him. Sounds like they really think he's going to go to Denver, but
yeah, honestly, I mean, if
don't care.
If Aaron Rodgers owns the Bears, then the Niners own Aaron Rodgers. So
that would be true. He's 0-4 against them in the playoffs.
So
the Niners selected Alex Smith over Aaron Rodgers in that draft, and since that time,
Rodgers like they're going to regret passing on me. It's like, well, no, sure, but like you can't beat them.
That game happened. One of the other games that happened. There's 2 games left. The LA Rams beat the Tampa Bay Bucks. Again, I picked the Bucks, not the Rams. I just didn't think Stafford was going to be able to come through in the playoffs, and I just thought Tom Brady, you can't count out touchdown Tom.
It was well, their defense was very reminiscent of the Vikings defense. It looks like their defense was playing not to lose, and so they let Cooper Kupp just basically run wherever he wanted on the field twice.
Those last 2 plays,
yeah,
I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
what do you even like? Cooper Kupp is a god this season. I don't know if he'll ever be able to do this again. I don't know if he'll ever be able to put up numbers as good as this. Even if he doesn't this season, I saw, I think it was Field Yates on Twitter said, I'm going to have to draft Cooper Kupp and start him every week, even on bye week next fantasy season, just for the whole just out of respect.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. The Bucks deserve to lose that with their play calling at the end.
Which we had an early video this year about last year about Antoine Winfield Jr. Antoine Winfield blew that coverage on Cooper Kupp in that last play.
Yeah. Well, it was a play right before too.
The play right before was on Murphy Bunting.
Yeah. So,
but that second one was all Winfield.
Not like, I don't know.
It was absolutely the defense on that. Like, it didn't matter if the field was flipped. I would have been very scared of Tom Brady in that situation. But the second that first Cooper Kupp pass happened, I thought the Rams were winning, even though they weren't within field goal range yet and that sort of thing. I was like, the Bucks have no defense. Yeah, Tom Brady doesn't get another one. Tom's talking about potential retirement now too. I doubt it, but again, it's another one of those. When the player starts talking about retirement, I do not care. I'll care once he retires.
Sure.
But until he retires, I don't care about where is he going to go? Is he going to stay? I have such a hard time being interested. The last game, though, Titans versus Bengals. That was actually, everybody was talking about how this week of games was really good and the Bengals-Titans was good. I didn't think the Bengals-Titans was that great of a game. It was just kind of meh. Like, I started watching. I watched the A.J. Brown one-handed catch live, and I was like, that was good. For the most part, that game was just kind of boring, and I like defensive stops, but the defenses didn't seem like they were making stops. It seemed more like the offenses were just sputtering. So it was very different. Like, when the defense feels dominating, you can tell.
Right.
Like, the 9 sacks, that makes that feels like you're dominating. But the Titans offense looked like they were sputtering more than the Bengals.
Sure.
Like, I don't know if Derrick Henry's still hurt. I know it's his first game back, but there were a couple times where he went down without a fight.
Yeah.
It was just like, it was disappointing. I don't think they were the worst number 1 seed ever. People were calling them the worst 1 seed ever. I saw somebody make a joke saying the worst 1 seed ever lost, and the Titans lost too this year. I thought that was very funny. Yeah, it was just kind of a boring game. It makes me like everybody's talking about the Bengals Chiefs is going to be close. Again, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I don't think the Bengals looked as impressive as people are making them out to be.
Like their first game,
right? Like, and this is from somebody who has tweeted so many times about loving the Bengals this season. I like Joe Burrow. I'm actually a big T. Higgins fan out of all the Bengals people.
Sure,
but man, that game was not as good to me as what everybody else thought. But anyway, we were speaking of people actually retiring. First one, Sean Payton has stepped away. He hasn't retired, but he has stepped away from football. So first he decides to get the Saints into a $70 million over, gets them signed to Taysom Hill long-term, gets Taysom Hill his money, and he's like, all right, got my guys their stuff, and he heads out. I've heard a lot of positive things about Sean Payton. It's hard to be super positive about Sean Payton as a Vikings fan, just in general.
We have him, the whole Bounty Gate thing, and then him mocking the skull chant.
Right before losing, Yep. Yeah, he's a great coach. If he was the person that the Vikings hired as head coach, I'm not mad. It's just like, I'm not mad if they get Aaron Rodgers, even though he's a Packer. Like, I'm not mad if we were to pick Sean Payton. But, I think he's one of the best offensive-minded people. And I've heard that players absolutely love him. And that in meetings with the media, he knows the first and last name, the daily schedule of all 53 starters every day. So he truly cares about his players. I've said that about Sean McVay. I think he will come back to football, but 100% he's going to be a broadcaster next year.
A lot of steam with the Cowboys.
I don't think that's happening. Not this year. I think he's going to be a TV broadcaster for at least 1 year. I've heard nothing except he hates COVID regulations right now, and that it's made it not enjoyable, and he feels exhausted. I get it. The other person that retired is Ben Roethlisberger. For those of you who do not know, for the longest time, I always said the Steelers are my second favorite team. It was only because of Mwelde Moore, because he's one of my favorite players of all time. So I followed Ben Roethlisberger pretty closely. I love Mike Tomlin. I will still argue that he's a top 3 coach ever. I think Ben Roethlisberger was amazing for the game. He has a terrific career, first ballot Hall of Fame. Take away his off-field issues that he's had, take away these last few years of his career, and everybody has a lot better image of who he is. I can't remember how long it was. It was him and Eli Manning were the most sacked quarterbacks when you combine them.
Yeah, they're up there. Yeah, Russ is up there too, though.
Right, but it was like when you combined Eli and Roethlisberger, they had over 500 more times sacked than when you combined number 3 and 4 together. Yeah, it was something ridiculous. Like Roethlisberger was an animal. Like he was like the Cam Newton. Like Cam Newton gets, people say that he always like deserved more penalties called. Like if Tom Brady was getting hit the way Cam Newton was hit, he'd have the most penalty yards ever.
Sure.
Roethlisberger was that before Cam came into the league.
Right.
Like Roethlisberger was that guy. My dad always said, he's like, you have to have 3 guys take him down. He's huge. And even when he's being taken down, again, did it before Mahomes did it. As he's being taken down, he can rocket a pass. So he was an awesome person to watch. But yeah, it was just, I think it was these last few years and his off-field issues that have kind of taken away.
Sure, and I always go back to the pass to Santonio Holmes, the corner of the end zone. One of my favorite sports moments ever. Just an amazing throw, amazing catch.
I really wish the Le'Veon Bell AB situation would have worked out, because that Steelers team would have...
The Killer Bees.
They still would have kept making the playoffs. Very disappointing, but, congratulations, Ben. Hall of Fame career for sure. Speaking of AB, though, AB just, made a posted a very poorly edited image, in my opinion. Yeah. It looked like somebody just copy and pasted a face as opposed to like texture smoothing and that. Right. It looked really bad, and it was him in a Ravens jersey.
Yeah, he said on some interview that he wants to play with Lamar, and then Lamar did like a little devil emoji, like tweeted at him, the devil emoji, but...
Right, and AB posted a picture of him in a Ravens uniform. saying like at Ravens get me signed or something like that.
Right.
His cousin plays. Hollywood Brown is his cousin. I think AB, just the AB saga in general. It came out that the Buccaneers offered to pay him to get a psychiatric evaluation and he refused. And then he got pissed about it. And in that same podcast where he was talking about playing for the Ravens, he mentioned how they wanted to send me to the nut house. Like, no, man, they wanted to check on you. Like these are people trying to look out for you. This is another example of Antonio Brown turning away people that are trying to look out for him and taking that, which is a sign of psychosis. They go over this in, I think it's firearm safety, because they teach you a bunch of different things in firearm safety to make sure, like, oh, if you have a weapon on you, you're going through this, like they teach you hypothermia and that sort of thing. A sign of psychosis is thinking everyone's out to get you. This is another example of somebody who seems like they're trying to help him that he thinks is trying to hurt him. It's just, it's very concerning, especially from somebody I actually really like when he plays football. It's just really concerning. I really want him to get help, but if he doesn't think he needs help, nobody can force him to do it.
Sure.
But yeah, he wants to play for the Lamar and the Ravens. I don't know how that would go, but he'd definitely help out the Ravens.
Yeah.
The Ravens have good weapons, but they only have one that is a consistent catcher of the football, which is Mark Andrews, and another one who's more of a take the top off the defense. I think they need that Adam Thielen.
You know, they have Sammy Watkins. It's just he did nothing.
And Rashad Bateman wasn't able to get out there much.
Yeah.
So I will see what happens with the whole AB thing. Would John Harbaugh want him is the thing.
Right.
It's going to be all up to the Ravens ownership. As Lamar can go and say, I want to play with AB all you want. Harbaugh is going to say, all right, he gets a 10-day contract, and every 10 days he has to go through a psychiatric about John Harbaugh doesn't seem like the type of guy who, he had Terrell Suggs and Ray Lewis, but even though those guys were pretty like high energy guys, when it came to football, they would have done anything for football.
Right.
They weren't going to cause problems, as opposed to AB, who it's AB over football.
Yeah. Drama.
Now let's get into a couple hires first. The first hire I want to talk about is the Broncos hired Nathaniel Hackett as their head coach. That was one of the guys the Vikings were interested in and a couple other teams were interested in. The Bears also hired their head coach, but it was not a very popular hire.
Yeah.
And
the first thing was like the Twitter post was like, Bears hire Matt, I don't even know what his name is.
He's a defensive guy, which I think is
defensive coordinator for the Colts.
Yep.
But the first 10 comments underneath the tweet was like, who?
Right.
There wasn't even one of the top 10.
Which that could be a good thing. That could mean that they were trying to keep it under wraps so that nobody else talked to them. The Colts have had good defense. That's been the strength of their team.
Right.
I think we'll wait to see how this hire turns out. I would have expected them to go offense if they thought Justin Fields was their guy, because I would have thought, they're going to want a quarterback like a Nathaniel Hackett, because they want a guy to teach a young quarterback how to be good. So it was surprising to me. I'm not going to judge how good or bad he will be because we don't know. The other thing was Nathaniel Hackett, we actually have some guys I listened to a guy on the radio, local radio in Minnesota, who has known Nathaniel since high school. Apparently he's a genius who decided to pursue football and sports, as opposed to he was on the path to be like an astrophysicist or biologist, chemist, like some very smart field. So he's very smart. Apparently he's very likable, very entertaining, and he has helped develop young quarterbacks. He was the quarterback coach or quarterback whatever executive when Blake Bortles was good the one year, and then he was off the Jags the next year. Yeah, that Nathaniel Hackett was the quarterback guy that year.
Okay.
So Nathaniel Hackett is good. So I think the Broncos made the great hire. The whole rumor is that they did that all for Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
We'll see if that's the case. I think the big thing is they either don't think that there's a good enough quarterback in the draft, so they're thinking maybe he can turn Drew Lock into gold for at least one season, or they think we're going to bring in a new quarterback and Nathaniel Hackett.
They got weapons. We were talking about it this season. They got a
Broncos
ton of
are
weapons.
super underrated. They're just weighed down by a terrible quarterback situation.
Yeah.
And Von Miller knew that. That's why he wanted to be out of there.
Yeah.
Denver people, Colorado people are die-hard Broncos fans.
Sure.
I always thought living in Minnesota, the Vikings fan had a lot of spirit, but even now, like after living in Denver, I feel like it's nowhere near the Bronco sport. And I was living in Denver, so obviously it could be different. But come back to Minnesota, and I see Packer stuff everywhere. I see Bear stuff. When I was
I feel like a lot of people in Minnesota, they're just Packers fans to
piss people off. That my brother only likes the Packers because it upsets other people. When I was in Denver, I never saw Raiders gear. Never.
Right.
We'll see what happens there. I think it's a good hire. I think it's a smart hire. I'm fine that the Vikings didn't get him. He wasn't one of my top choices. I'm not going to act like I know who all these choices are.
Right.
But I think it's good. Speaking of Vikings hires, though, they have finally hired a GM, and they've interviewed some head coaches, including D'Amico Ryans and some other guys.
They have tape on like 8 different guys or something like that. So
yeah, they have a scheduled interview with, I think it was something close to 8 as well. Kwesi Adofo Mensah is, I believe, how he pronounced it in his press conference today. Kwesi Adofo Mensah. Sounds like they cut off that first O. So it's not Kwesi Adofo. It sounds like it's Kwesi Adofo Mensah.
Kwesi. I saw the pronunciation was like Kwesi Adofo Mensah.
Yeah, I was just going based off how he said it in his conference. Kwesi Adofo Mensah. He could have been just trying to speak quickly, so they're going to I heard the guys on local radio say that when they bring him in, they're going to ask him to clarify. But yeah, they brought him in. He's 40 years old. He's a young guy. He sounds super smart, super excited, has some connections to Minnesota. He has a friend who went to Moorhead, he said in his press conference. Yeah. He says, do not call him an analytics guy. He doesn't like that label because he's kind of looped in with the analytics people. He doesn't like that. He's like, I'm a researcher. I care about data and research. I'm not analytics. We will mark that down and make sure to mention that in the future. It's first thing, apparently, he's calling all the players.
Yeah. You watched that full 25-minute thing or whatever?
Not the full 25 minutes. I watched the full first 15 minutes of one of the press conferences and then clips of the rest. I think I wanted to, after listening to him speak, I'll just do it here. Wow, let's go to war for him. I want to go to war.
I would have been there in the stands
he seems super cool. Definitely a new change of leadership, totally needed.
Yeah, they even asked him the whole Spielman and the scouting thing. They asked him about that, and he's like, I'm going to have to say, I'm completely different than that. That's me. He's like, do I care about, scouting and stuff like that? Sure, but, it's a bigger picture. So
everything's big picture to him, which is awesome.
And then I love when he said there, they asked him, it's all right, first things first, you need to find a head coach. And he's like, no, I need to find a partner that will work with me, a partner for myself to help me build what I want to, or build the organization how it should be built. So
speaking of doing things completely different, I heard some shocking news about Mike Zimmer today.
Yeah, I saw that tweet.
So they have, when they rebuilt their facilities, practice facility, got the new stadium, there's 9 TVs in the players' locker room. They've never been turned on. Mike Zimmer didn't allow the players to watch TV. He removed all of the arcade machines, foosball tables, pool tables, made sure none of those were in the building. And when the players asked for a basketball court, he said no. Why? Because he only wanted them to focus on football. The only things that were ever put on those TVs was the schedule for the day. I was listening to a former Gopher player talk about this, and he was shocked and he could not contain his anger. He's like, that would stress me out. He's like, the locker room is where these teams build together. And the same former Gopher player said his one biggest issue with the Vikings is he's never been able to point out leadership. Where's the leadership? There's lack of leadership. It's because there was no leadership. It was Zimmer's way or no way.
Right.
And that's why that was huge, shocking to me. If you ever been in a sport where you're in the locker room, the locker room is where a lot of goofiness happens. It's where a lot of relationships are built. When it comes to the higher levels, in college, they try to give these players full Dave and Buster's level games to play,
right?
Because they want these guys to hang out. If you're there for 2 hours playing Madden, the Gophers have Xboxes and PlayStations set up.
Sure.
So these players stick around. Mike Zimmer wanted the opposite. And one of the local guys that we listen to here, Chris Hockey, was saying, because he's been in the new business for decades.
Sure.
And he said, with previous coaches, the players wouldn't, they'd be sticking around. And he always thought it was so weird that these players would, there'd be a train of cars leaving the second practice was over or a game was over.
Sure. And
he didn't know why. And then we found out today because Adam Thielen brought it up on an interview in a podcast that Zimmer didn't allow TV, didn't allow games, nothing. There was no sense of unity, friendship, camaraderie on a team sport. No wonder the Vikings can't find success. They've had this mentality. And then he said it was completely opposite because Leslie Frazier allowed players to run practices. Apparently, when Adam Thielen first got onto the Vikings, the first day of practice, there were players lounging on the grass.
So we want something kind of in between.
We need an in between. Yes. Yeah. Like we want the players to feel like they have freedom and control, but we also want them to feel structured.
Yeah.
Structure doesn't mean like you have to.
Yeah, I would love to see the first thing after when Kwesi said that he was going to. I'm calling him Kwesi because we're on a first name basis.
Mr. Odofo-Mensah.
Yeah, like he's going to like right after this, I'm going to call some players. You know, I was like, I want to talk to anybody and everybody to learn like what they want, what made them want to be a Viking, what do they love about being a Viking, stuff like that. So I'm very curious who he's talking to. Like, I wonder if he's talking to the captains, like he's talking to all the captains. So if he's talking to Harry and Kendricks and Daniil and I think Pierce.
I also wouldn't be surprised
Alvin
to see if he talked about, maybe he talks to Case Keenum because he was with him in Denver or Cleveland. Like maybe he gives him a quick call, like what was it like in Minnesota versus Colorado, like since he can, or Cleveland, because like maybe he can
or
get
Denver,
or Denver.
Right. Like what was it, Minnesota compared to Denver and Cleveland, you know?
Right, like talk to somebody he has in touch with that actually has Minnesota ties that's been elsewhere. I think he could talk to guys like that, as well as Thielen, Kendricks, Harry are the first three. I'm like Thielen, Kendricks, Harry, and then obviously want to talk to Kirk and Dalvin.
Yeah.
However, a consistency that we've seen with all these players is one thing that they don't want to change at all. Like obviously they want a complete rehaul of the mentality of the team. One thing they don't want changed is the wide receiver coach McCardell needs to stay. You have defensive players, offensive players, assistants, everyone's saying he is like the reason. If you get rid of McCardell, Justin Jefferson won't re-sign, is the most impactful quote I saw.
Right.
Like, okay.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, like you look at your wide receiver room and you have a top three wide receivers, and you have a fourth receiver that you're like, yeah, like I'd like to see him get some spurts and like see what he can do. And
you have a fifth
set. So
D.D. Westbrook was good where he got in.
Right.
Like you have a full wide receiver room of talent. Full.
Right. Yeah, I know that. Like from the beginning, I knew McCardell was like one of the first ones, and then like for us, it's like, all right, I know a lot of these guys have had relationships with Andre Patterson, but
I was shocked to see people aren't jumping to his defense, but that's all McCardell.
Yeah,
all of it.
And he was one of the newer guys, you know, like last year was and then our special teams coach was also really good comparatively to what we've had. So
that's the thing is we don't know whether Odofo-Mensah is going to be good. We don't know.
Kubiak needs to go and Zimmer needs to go.
Basically, everybody that Zimmer brought in and coached up that Zimmer has brought from his own needs to go because we don't know what their mentality is going to be. I think the assistants and stuff are going to end up being the head coach's choice, but the head coach himself is going to be Kwesi's choice 100%.
Yeah. So I hope Kwesi is like, hey, listen, like we can build your coaching staff together, but your wide receivers, which is a very important part of our team and probably the face of our team, Justin Jefferson, at least right now, wants this guy to stay in whatever capacity he needs to stay in. He needs to stay, something like that.
And anybody who's been listening,
a ton of room
these past couple of weeks, Mike McDaniel is my top choice. D'Amico Ryans is up there. However, what I have heard today a lot and from other people, it sounds like Kevin O'Connell. You heard that?
I've heard Kevin, a lot of good things about Kevin O'Connell too.
He apparently is the far and away most likely choice for the Vikings. The offensive coordinator for the Rams.
Yeah.
You know, I am in the field of stay away from Sean McVay.
Right.
If you can. I don't think the Rams' offensive prowess is that impressive. It's their defense that really I think is amazing. Their offense has kind of been carried by really good skill position. Like it was Gurley, tight. Like it was Higbee. They have Cup.
Kevin O'Connell was in Washington when Kirk was in Washington.
Exactly, and that's why I think that's a big reason why people were talking about it. I think that there's other choices that are better. We'll see. Obviously, I don't know.
I think the makeups of the team are very similar offensively. You've got kind of Robert Woods got hurt. Unfortunate, but Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, very like skill levels are very similar to us, like our receivers. Tight ends are similar. Higbee's really good. They're just starting to figure out that they've had him the entire year, but he's crazy good. I mean, I've stated this multiple times. I think the Vikings offense is 2 linemen away from being top 10, top 5, and what they can do. But yeah, I guess I'm curious to see what happens.
We'll see if he is hired. I'd love to get him on here. That'd be sick. Yeah, I can't judge any hire just because I might want anybody but Mike McDaniel. I'm going to be pissed. Like, I'm not going to be that way.
Right.
Obviously, I just want McDaniel because I think his personality meshes. It's completely different from Zimmer. But I think you're right. I don't know. I think he would be a good pairing with Kwesi, but anybody could be, Right, so. Exactly. And just because he was with Kirk, that tells me that if you hire him, does that mean that you plan on sticking with Kirk?
So I saw something along the lines of no team has won a Super Bowl when your quarterback takes over 16% of your cap, and the 16% number was right around what we've kind of said, around that
25, 30.
Well, yeah, it's 30. It's actually 33, I believe, is 16% of our cap. So anything under 33, if you're analytics, right. If no team has won the Super Bowl where the quarterback takes over 16%, if you get Kirk under 16%, that should be doable.
That should be doable. Ability to lose a player due to injury and still
right now,
to
I believe he's at 21% if that 45 goes through.
We had a whole portion of a different episode where we talked about how there's no issue with Kirk on the field. The issue is his number. If he was paid what he produces.
Yeah, we said 390 or 3,100. It's roughly in that 30 to 33 range, which is right in that under 16%.
It allows you to sign free agents. You can't sign a super good free agent because they don't have the money to do so. So, if they can do that, that'd be huge.
Yeah, it's also the incompetence of the defense that has happened lately. We were the 12th highest paid defense, but we performed the 31st. So
right, and that's 2 years in a row. We were 29th and then 31st.
Yeah, lack of bringing in the correct free agents and skill.
Sticking with the Vikings news, though, this is our last piece of Vikings news. Brian O'Neill is replacing Tristan Wirfs for the Pro Bowl. We've said it. He should be in the Pro Bowl. We thought he should be in it anyway. Before, he shouldn't have been alternate. He's now the 4th Viking in the Pro Bowl.
Pro Bowls.
Who do we got? I believe it's Harrison Smith,
Dalvin,
and Jefferson.
So Kendrick's got the snub.
Out of Vikings players, but if you look at the inside linebackers, it's Micah Parsons, Bobby Wagner, and Devin White. And Devin White's replacing Wagner. So it's not like he was snubbed by terrible players. Cowboys are going to get in, so
Berg's team.
Brian O'Neill in the Pro Bowl. Again, Pro Bowl, not as important as All Pro, but very happy for him.
Holy overpay.
Yeah, he did not deserve that extension. Just the most overpaid lineman in the league. Just a waste. He's allowed less pressures than Quentin Nelson.
That'd be one of my favorites, is if we could get Brian O'Neill on here. I feel like he'd just be so fun. He just seems like a fun person.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
He seems super cool. He seems super cool. I just want to see him.
I'm just getting all these names we can just
I want to see him run a route because he was a tight end. I would love to see, because we've seen what the Chiefs and the Bills in the playoffs both did a lineman touchdown.
Oh, it'd be
give it to O'Neill.
Crazy, yeah.
I know Bradbury is the one who's got the hands and stuff, but give it to O'Neill.
But
yeah, that'd
be a mismatch, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, totally.
Name
a linebacker that can guard him. No one. Can't name one. Fred Warner? Nope. Darius Leonard?
Kendricks? Nope.
Kendricks? No. Not a single one. Khalil? No. Khalil can't even get past him on pass rush.
You're damn
How's he
right.
going to stop him in coverage?
Yeah, it was such a difference. You realize when we played the Browns, Myles Garrett went over to Darisa's side because he was like, I don't want to do that.
There's no way. O'Neill is just super underrated. So if maybe we'll just take this little clip here, let O'Neill know we absolutely love him. And I would love to get him on here because he's amazing. Last thing we're going to do before we send you all on your way is go over the big games before the Super Bowl. Bengals versus Chiefs. Chiefs are 7.5-point favorites at home. I think the number is a little bit too big. I said it before, the Bengals Titans did not look that impressive as opposed to the other games. Yeah, I get that the Chiefs don't have a great defense, at least not in the playoffs. They haven't been playing well. The Bengals feel super outmatched. I think 7.5 points is a little much. I think that potential is there. I think there is a chance, they lose by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. I mean, when you've got the offensive firepower of
Joe Burrow, T. Higgins,
the Kansas City Chiefs, it's a whole different ball game. Like we've said it before, never count out the Chiefs if they've got the best, one of the best quarterbacks in the league back there, and they got the tight end 1, wide receiver 2. Like you can make arguments for both.
Yeah, and the Pringle exploded. He's come onto the scene.
Yeah,
they have the pieces on defense. They just don't seem to be able to perform.
Apparently, they have the snacks too. Oh yeah, they got what?
They got Frank Clark, Chris Jones, Tyrann Mathieu, Mike Hughes. I mean, they just got all of the stars. See, this is the thing. So people were talking about how, I think the Chiefs are going to win by 2 touchdowns. There's a potential there.
Oh yeah.
If Mike Hughes is guarding Jamar Chase, he's going to have more touchdowns. He's going to have more touchdowns than Gabriel Davis. So if they can keep Joe Burrow upright, you're going to have a ball game. And if Mike Hughes is guarding any of the top 3 receivers on the Bengals, they should just target him every time. Yeah,
Mike Hughes is not great. But Mike Hughes, 1 out of every, say, 50 plays is a good play. So, we'll have to see. It definitely has the potential to be a shootout. I expected the line to be 5.5.
I think it opened at 7. It might have opened at 7 or 6.5.
I don't know. 5.5, 6.5. I don't know. Not 7.5 is
they have to win by over a touchdown. Even if they win by a touchdown, the Bengals still cover. However, I can see this. I said this about the Bucs though, and I was wrong, but I feel like I could see a blowout here. I think the Bengals are a little outmatched. If I'm wrong, again, I said this last week, there were 2 teams that I didn't want to win. Both of those teams are now out.
Yeah.
All 4 of these teams that are left in the playoffs could win the Super Bowl, and I'm happy.
Sure.
So this is good football. This next 2 weeks of the Super Bowl and the conference championships, I'm happy for. If I'm making a pick, Chiefs.
I'm taking Chiefs too.
Yeah. And then last is Niners Rams. I'm wearing my Rams jersey because I think they're gonna win. Do I want them to win? Again, I don't care if they win or lose. I'm fine if Niners win or the Rams. I feel like if I were to lean one way, I think I'm leaning Bengals Niners. My heart wants the Bengals, my heart wants the Niners. My head says the Chiefs, and my head says the Rams.
I think my heart says the Rams.
Your heart says the Rams?
Yeah.
For Stafford?
Yeah.
It's hard not to root for Stafford.
I think it's like what we talked about today. If Rodgers goes to the AFC and Brady retires, Kirk could be top 3 in the NFC. And my first 2 things were I've seen people be like, oh, Dak's better than him, Kyler's better than him. You can make the argument that Kirk's better than those 2, but I thought Stafford and Russ are the first 2 that are all right, they're better than Kirk.
Yeah. Yep. That's the thing though, is if they don't make the Super Bowl, Goff took them further than Stafford did.
Yeah, but then the last time the Niners were there is
still Jimmy G.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. So I was I don't want to see that again.
Right. That's the thing is the Niners are so boring. The Niners versus Chiefs would be such boring football to me. Or Niners versus Bengals.
Bengals I think would be incredibly boring, but Chiefs Rams would be a freaking
I tweeted about this. Week 18, while we were recording the podcast, I said I'm excited to see the Niners Bengals Super Bowl. Facetiously. I said it as a joke, made you laugh, and we both joked about it. Ha ha.
It's a possibility.
It's still alive. That is still alive and possible. So
I hope it's Chiefs Rams. I think that'd be a much more entertaining Super Bowl.
Chiefs Rams would be the most entertaining. Bengals would be the most fun win because they're a franchise that doesn't have a Super Bowl yet.
Yeah.
Chiefs have won 2, Rams have won 1, Niners have won 5. If you're going by that, rooting for the Rams and the Bengals. But if you're I don't know, that the Bengals or the Rams Niners game, I can't say which. I feel like my heart's leaning Niners, but then I think about Stafford and I think about Aaron Donald. Do I want Aaron Donald to not get a Super Bowl? No, right. Aaron Donald needs a Super Bowl. But then do I think either of those teams beat the Chiefs if the Chiefs are the one to make it through? Rams have a better chance in my opinion. If I'm going to make a pick, I pick Rams.
I'd take Chiefs Rams too. That's what I'm saying
Chiefs Rams. All right. That's it really though. That's all I got to say about football and anything this week. There's not any other huge storylines besides hirings college football, college draft isn't really going yet. So Minnesota Wild are kicking ass.
Kaprizov, I got his 100th career point the other day. I saw that. So good for him.
Yeah, Wild are good. I just don't care about hockey.
Yep, I'll care about it when it gets to the
Still
playoffs.
Wild fan. For some reason, the way Bears and Packers fans talk about the Vikings is the way Wild fans talk about other Minnesota sports.
See, I can get behind the teams when I like if I'm at a bar, which I'm never at a bar. If I'm at like a relative's, which I'm never at a relative's. If I'm at a friend's, I don't have friends. Yeah. So if I'm at a place and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna turn the game on," it's like I'll pay attention to it if it's like a Minnesota team.
I wish I could say that I had that sort of dedication, but Wild fans annoy me just as much as Packer fans. So I just can't. Sure. I can't. Sure. So that's it for our sports section. Hope you all enjoyed this week. If you like Marvel, entertainment, fun topics like the green M&M not being allowed to be a slut, or does the Energizer Bunny poop batteries, check out our other section of our podcast, still under the same name. You all look great today. Hope you have a great weekend, and GG.
GG.